morning and welcome to the Standing Policy Committee on Community Services for Tuesday, March 3rd, 2026. My name is City Councillor Vivian Santos of the Point Douglas Ward. I'll be your chairperson today. We also have Councillor Emma Duran-Wood and Councillor Cindy Gilroy with us today. We also have members from the Public Service, our Senior Committee Clerk, Mr. Peter Prinsloo. I want to quickly acknowledge that we are meeting on Treaty 1 territory, the traditional homeland, the Red River Métis, that we all have living on. Also acknowledge our ancestral territory lands and that our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake Band number 40 in Treaty 3 and our neighbors, and want to acknowledge them in Treaty 5 where our hydroelectricity also comes from. Moving on, we will move on to delegations. First up is Councillor Mays to be heard in support of a donation to the St. Vital Historical Society, a 1922 LaFrance pumper truck. Is Councillor Mays here online?
Councillor Mays is not here.
Okay.
However, Councillor Mays would like us to suspend the rules to allow a delegation who missed the deadline, Mr. Wayne Ruff, to appear on this particular item.
Sure. Moved by Councillor Gilroy. All those in favor? Aye, and that's carried. You can bring in Mr. Ruff.
Perfect. Wayne, the committee has suspended the rules to allow you to make a presentation. If you can start your video, unmute your mic, and we'll put 5 minutes on the clock for you.
Good morning. I am with the St. Vital Museum, a board member. I'm here to give you a bit of background on this particular motion. The 1922 LaFrance was originally purchased by the St. Boniface City and it operated out of the Dumoulin Fire Hall. The truck was taken out of service in 1967 and the fire hall closed in 1969. The truck remained there in storage and in 1983 it was turned over to the Winnipeg Firefighters Museum and remained again in storage there until in 2019, the city decided to sell that particular location. And with a conversation between the Winnipeg Firefighters Museum and the St. Vital Museum, at that time, the late Bob Holliday was the president. We took that truck in storage at the location on St. Mary's Road. We had two trucks there. We have a 1939 truck, which was the last truck to serve the St. Vital community. The board itself decided that space was a problem. We were trying, after a strategic plan, to increase the amount of displays related to our Métis Indigenous communities and in history there. So we needed to get rid of one truck. We carried on a dialogue with the Winnipeg firefighters on several occasions to see what they wanted to do with the truck, whether they could find a place for storage or whether they would include it in their displays. They chose not to. The board directed me to try to find a location somewhere in Manitoba. We emailed and sent information on the truck to every municipality in the Manitoba area. We had no response. We offered it to the Red River Exhibition, no response. So Councillor Mays approached the city's legal department in 2023 to see if, in fact, we could transfer that truck elsewhere. Our board had decided it would never sell it to the U.S. or attempted to move it to the United States. I did some research and I discovered that there was an organization called the Canadian Firefighters Museum in Orillia, Ontario. I spoke with the curator there. They were very interested in obtaining a truck from the West because most of their trucks on display were Ontario trucks. And so when Councillor Mays on 3 or 4 occasions got no response from the legal department, we decided to transfer the truck. We did so on April 25th, 2024 at no sale value. We donated it to the Canadian Firefighters Museum and they have it in their possession. They want to register the truck and make it part of their permanent displays. And so we need that motion to transfer that ownership as a donation from the city of Winnipeg. I'll take questions.
Great. Thank you for that bit of history. I've learned a lot more. Thank you. Any questions for the delegate? Saying none. Yeah, I don't have any other questions. Just was it discussed on who was gonna be paying for the transportation of the fire truck to this museum?
That is correct. All the costs and assumption of the cost to transfer the truck was assumed by the Canadian Firefighters Association. It did not cost the St. Vital Museum any money at all to transfer the truck.
Okay. What are the timelines then to move the truck? I guess as soon as this motion passes, they're willing to take it on ASAP?
The truck's already gone. They have it right now. We transferred it when Councillor Mays indicated that he did not hear back from the legal department. We then pursued the transfer, and as I said, the truck was transferred on April 25th, 2024. So they have the truck in their possession now and paid all costs to transfer it. They have it on display. What they're trying to do is get it registered so it can be part of their collection.
Got it. Okay, perfect. Okay, thank you for clarifying that. Okay, seeing no other questions, thank you for making the time to come out.
Much appreciated. You have a great day.
Yeah, you too. Thank you.
I know.
Moving on to our next delegate, Mr. Steve Snyder, to be heard in support of the 2026 report on Parks and Open Space Assets, report number 5. Is Steve online?
Steve is not online and he's not in the gallery, so I suppose that concludes our delegations for today.
Okay, we'll move on to reports. Verbal update on the encampment response protocol. I believe we have 2 people today. Chris Brent is back.
Yes.
Thank you, and Mr. Greg McPherson. All right. Fantastic.
Councillors,
Yes.
Greg does have a subsequent report, an addendum. So if we could have perhaps a suspension of the rules to add addendums number 8 and 9 to the agenda. And while
He's
the
here.
gentleman is
Yeah,
here,
we can bring up
that, but
item number 8 up.
perfect.
Can I get a suspension of the rules? Okay, moved by Councillor Duran Wood. All those in favor? Aye. And then, yeah, if you can do items 1 and 8.
Great.
Okay, that'll be great. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
When did the addendum get put onto the agenda?
Yesterday.
Yeah, so the donation is the motion that we just heard, and then report on places to go
Okay.
framework. Yeah. We had, I think, the previous meeting requested a 30-day extension. And then here we are 30 days later. They were able to put it on. I know, the timing is bizarre, but I think you guys can explain a little bit how that worked, if you don't mind.
Sure, well, on that one, very briefly, because the council meeting was just, I think, on Thursday, so, that was approved, the 30-day extension, but we had it already submitted well in advance. I think in the last meeting, we had suggested that we could have had it prepared even for that meeting, but we needed to do it in days, so that's why it was submitted so late, as an event. The council meeting, so most of this meeting.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so verbal update on the encampment response protocol, please go ahead.
Thank you again for the opportunity to share our updates regarding the encampment protocol and policy implementation. For the past month, we've seen it's again, I think I mentioned last meeting that we have witnessed a very much slower period of encampment activity over the last few months because of the cold weather. The winter has definitely taken the volume of calls regarding encampments down. Similarly, I think the impact of the Your Way Home effort to house people out of encampments is quite striking. So we've seen report even, I believe yesterday, that 186 people have been housed. So for us, it's been a relatively good period, I think, fair to say. So for the time being, the number of sites we've actioned since November 17th has gone up to 17 public properties. These are the usual metrics that we've been reporting monthly. Garbage removal, we've now seen 51 sites that have been actioned by the city since November 17th. And the number of signs posted by our bylaw enforcement officers have gone up. Now we've got 108 on-site inspections by our bylaw enforcement team. We've seen 119 signs posted, and of those, we've had 15 replacements. So 15 that have been taken down and replaced. We had also at the last meeting suggested that we could provide some sense of of resource allocation. I think if it's okay with council, with the committee at this stage, we'll have a more detailed answer on that next meeting. We're still waiting for some information from some of our department partners, but it's been a joint effort, a collective effort, certainly. So that's all we have for today. Have any questions?
Yes, go ahead, Councillor Gilroy.
Well, I guess I'm really concerned because I have Langside, which I and the community have all been sending to the city to do something about it. It's on a lot that shouldn't be. There is a sign that is prohibiting, and we have two really large encampments. It's also a place where we've had multiple fires, sexual exploitation happening out of it, and drug selling. So I guess it's concerning to me that we have this park bylaw policy now, and we're not enforcing it. So that sign has been up there for a very long time now. It should have been enforced, and it's not happening. And we're not even in summer. This is like the slowest time of the year. So why aren't we following our own bylaws and enforcing?
This is picked probably most complicated example. So I'll take a step back. We've been working with our outreach teams and with the province on that site. Our bylaw enforcement officers have been attending almost daily. We have outreach attending daily. The reality for us is that during the winter months, to displace somebody, unless we have an offer of housing, we would be displacing them and risk their lives. So we've kind of slowed down with outright enforcement, without a solid option for the person to move into shelter or housing. And so in this specific case, we have housed several of the people out of that encampment. And even as recently as last week, we have gone in and done a partial cleanup because we had managed to house people. It took us a long time with working with our outreach partners to find housing for those individuals. There is one person who remains unhoused and is staying at the encampment site. And we are working actively with our partners in their way home to find housing for that person. They've requested 55 plus housing, and it's a bit more challenging to find that specific kind of housing. The other angle on this that's more difficult for us is that that's not technically a park, it's a residentially zoned property. And so for us, while it in part fits in with our protocol, we can't enforce in the way we would in a park, which would be a camping restriction. So for us, it does complicate how we can actually have someone removed from the site.
Is that really frustrates me because I made sure that community gardens were a part of this. Because community gardens and parks are an asset that's considered. There's even a name of that park that the community has named. Ashley Hutchins, I think. So like we're gonna have to figure this out, and we've had extreme cold weather, so that person we should be opening up the warming centers. We should have been opening up making sure that we have the Main Street project, the extra space on Logan open up. So why aren't we doing that? Because it talks about it's not necessarily housing, but if we had shelter, that we would be able to move people on. So we know that those people are having fires in there, which is a danger to their life as well. So if we can't figure this out right now on the slow time, I'm very concerned about what we're going to figure out in the meantime. So like, I'm glad you guys are going there, but there's a bylaw and it should be in place and we should be following it, and that's what the public's expecting.
Again, I just would say that this specific case, because it's a city-owned residential lot, it's not a park, and so we would have to enforce a trespass order against the individual at the site, which is challenging. We would have to work with the police service. It's a little bit different. If it was a park, we could have done a different approach.
Okay, I'm gonna just stretch because we've got to figure this out. I'm gonna stretch this because if it's on private property, we have every single right to remove somebody. Okay, now, when I'm talking about displacing, I am talking about displacing them to the proper place, like a warm place, which would be a shelter, right? If they choose not to go, we can't control that, right? I understand that. But if we have the options of housing or shelter, we can move somebody. We gotta encourage people into shelter. Because that's where they should be. Otherwise, their life is threatened every time they have a fire inside those tents. And then the surrounding area, the tree's already been on fire. So I guess I'm pushing back a little bit. We have the right to do this. I feel like we have the right, we've given ourselves the right, we're choosing not to. So,
Well, I don't
And if
think
that's-
I think you and I are on the same page.
okay,
Yeah,
Yes.
we have been working very hard at this specific site to action it. It is complicated by the reasons I've explained.
Mhm.
I would say though that we're very close to having that site remediated. It's just that
Okay.
it's a bit more complicated because of those reasons than other sites that are designated as parks.
okay.
Can I ask a question? How many people are there right now?
One,
One person, one fellow that's left. And originally, how many were there?
up to 13.
13?
However, when we're not making the footprint smaller, other people could come back or could come in. Remediation is important. And I might also suggest that if it's a 55+ person, but if it's a good space, I think the dynamics of the person might be difficult from what I think is going on here. But we also could be looking at street lengths, their place on St. Mary's. If it's another person with a hospital kids. So just throwing it out there. I just want it on the radar. So I'm just concerned how this is gonna work moving forward, our strategy.
Any other questions? No? Okay, so you said as of November 17th, 17 public properties. Remind me again, the last meeting, so how many is that up, or is that still the same? Is that number
3 additional.
3 additional sites now? And then remind me again, okay, so you had mentioned because it's a city-owned residential lot. You have obviously different priority structures. So what would a city-owned residential lot be considered under the 3 or 4 different priorities that you have?
Well, there's the 3
Pillars, right? There's the 3
Yeah.
different priorities.
So we are looking at this one as a priority 2 site. We're trying to action it though as a priority 1 site because of the community garden component.
It's a bit of a blend between
But it's
priority
a
one.
tricky one. Yeah, it is a tricky one.
Um,
Not an exact fit. Not all properties or circumstances will be an exact fit for the protocol.
Has the fire paramedics community, I guess, liaison attended this site due to the fire issues here? Yeah, and has reminded them about safety. I don't know, I haven't been to that site. Are they using propane? Are they using wood? Do you know what products they're using?
The specifics of it, but
Okay.
I know that yes, has attended several occasions. The warnings and to the consent must have this.
I've got another question, just because we know that this group came from the hotel, the burnt down hotel. I'm pretty sure that this is the group that kind of came from the hotel. When that happens, when there's a fire, what is the coordinated response to trying to get them into shelter right away, right after the fire?
I can speak to that a little bit.
Please, yes.
Typically, if there's and the chief would probably be most able to answer this, but I'll do my best here. Typically, if there's a fire, particularly a residential fire that includes someone's private property or a hotel, if those individuals don't have insurance or don't have a place to go, they'll call the city's emergency social services team, which would then be dispatched to meet those people where they're at in community, liaise with the fire service workers that are there, and then provide alternative accommodations. That could be short-term hotel stays, or it could be shelter, or it could be any other available housing that could be open at that time. So that would be the resource that would go and support those folks in that moment. And typically the goal is to ensure all those folks are housed before that team disengages with that work. So that would be the most immediate response.
So when does the cold weather, like the place on Logan that we open up for shelter? When does that open? Like, do we open that in case, like, say an emergent, there's a fire? We're needing to expand the shelter space that we have, and I know we do it during extreme weather occasions. Like, is that used in
So-
these cases?
For this one, I might have to ask either Greg to help me out on this. It's the last year I was here. I've been off on 7 month.
Yeah, for sure.
So I'm not sure if the pop-up was operating this winter, was it?
I believe it was.
So then if it was, typically what they would do is open it up on a night where there's a certain threshold of temperature and then folks could go and access that space. I think in previous years, they've had it open almost every night if they can manage it from a staffing perspective. So it would have depended on what the temperature was at the time when the fire occurred to see if that pop-up space was open or not.
And just sorry, just so I can understand this, what happens when these individuals they're not allowed in shelter? They're not safe to be in shelter. Is there anything that's happens, or is that when they're displaced onto the street?
From a fire specifically?
No, like they're not safe to be in shelter because they're not safe, that the shelter has deemed that their behavior or whatever has warranted that they're banned from the shelter.
I think it's case by case. The shelters all have their own policies.
Right.
So I think
Okay.
depending on the shelter.
I do know the shelter system is coordinated, so the shelters, I wouldn't want to speak for them, but I know in some cases, if they are turning someone away or they have to ask someone to leave, we'll contact their partners and see if someone else can accommodate.
Okay.
But in some cases, I do think, yes, they're probably turned away in extreme circumstances.
For sure. Okay, thank you. I apologize.
That's okay. No, good questions. Okay, so you weren't here at the last meeting. We had talked about getting something more in writing. We've done a lot of verbal reports, so I'm just bouncing ideas right now and wanting to see what the committee felt like about having either our next meeting, March. We're in March already, right? So either April or May, they can come back with a written report. And then that's when they can also provide more numbers at that time. What are your thoughts? I still like the verbal reports. It doesn't matter to me, but I think something more in writing would be also good as well. Cause I'm starting to lose track because I write a lot of notes. I'm starting to lose track. So something more in writing would be helpful for me, but I'm looking for your guys' direction as well.
Verbal report in the winter time is probably good enough. It's gonna be summer, like we're really gonna have to see how this new policy is working. And that's where we're gonna probably have to see numbers to see if what we're doing is working and where we can pivot if we need. So I would say as moving forward, as the weather warms up, we're gonna start to see more people moving out into encampments, and we're gonna have to be more on top of it.
Okay,
So I'm in favor of it.
okay, so can we just do the next one, have them come back in, did I say April or May? Do you want April or May? When's our April meeting?
Our April meeting will be on April the 14th.
Is that enough time for you guys, April the 14th? That's like 6 weeks,
For a verbal?
or a written report, including your next monthly update would include that. Or do you require,
I would say just because of the RIS system,
Okay.
that would mean that we would be putting the report in the next couple of weeks. So it would be vastly different from what we heard today. So I
Okay.
think if you vote for May, we can certainly have something in writing that's a bit more detailed.
okay,
We can provide a verbal in April, but if you'd like to have a May written.
So just
Do
for
that.
clarity for the minutes, so is this a one-time written or perpetual every?
one-time written.
Okay.
Yeah, let's do a one-time written, and then from there we can do another direction if we want.
Okay, so the monthly verbals will stay in place with a one-time written.
Well, I think it would be good to have monthly verbals while we're going through. I do recognize your very small team and very busy team, like, so I want to recognize that and how much we put on your plate. But having us start maybe with a written in May would allow us to see where we started from and keep that data, and then we'll kind of go from there. We'll hopefully try to do verbals to keep them not overwhelmed, but we're gonna need to have the data on what's going on out there, so.
Great, so am I hearing continuous monthly verbals with a written report due in May?
To start us off for the spring, summer season.
And was there anything specific you want in the written or just to?
No, I kind of like
encapsulate?
what they provide already in their verbals. And I think in their resources and costs, could you put that into the written document? Okay, let's do that. So a verbal next month, and then in your written document, add the resources and costs into the written one. Let's do that.
And when is the RFP coming back for the, like, will that be for May? Will we know?
The RFP closed 2 weeks ago. The review is being conducted now by the adjudication committee.
Okay,
Then we anticipate that committee will meet this week to do a final consensus meeting with the award report going to the CAO likely early next week. So we should see it close next week.
so we would have that knowledge in May.
That's right.
Okay.
Okay, good. Can you read that again? Sorry, Peter? What
Yes.
the
So,
amending motion is?
yeah, it's a bit of a two-parter. So
Yeah.
first, that the verbal report be received as information. And secondly, that the Winnipeg Public Service be directed to provide a written report at the May 4th meeting of the Standing Policy Committee on Community Services on the encampment response plan detailing resources and costs.
Perfect. Is that okay? That's good. Do you understand, or do you want to add another one language?
I was wondering if we should quantify the resources and costs to the period of time from the start of the policy
Okay.
till now, just to give us some confines on how to track that. That'd be helpful. Thank you.
Yeah.
I just make a comment. I really do appreciate everything you're doing. I don't want to see, I'm not grateful, because I know these are challenging things for the community and wanting to make sure, people in towns are safe. So that's why I'm drilling you, and that's why I'm asking you the tough questions, but hoping that you understand why, yeah.
So I'll just need a mover for that motion.
Okay, Councilor Gilroy, as amended, all those in favor? Aye. Okay, moving on to report on item number 8, report on Places to Go Framework 2025 and Downtown Washroom Initiatives.
Yes, and thank you for allowing us to move this up. So if you recall back, potentially in July of 2020, council passed the Places to Go washroom strategy. As part of that motion, we were also directed as a public service to provide annual reports. This report was extended twice, but the report before you now is the update for this year. Just 2 quick highlights of the report that I think are worth mentioning. In the last reporting period, Amway-Gameg, which is the downtown public washroom, had close to 50,000 visitors, which is a significant amount. That's roughly 4,000 or just over 4,000 a month. And it's an increase of about 4,000 people since last year, which is excellent. As well, too, if you've been in the space, you might have noticed there's some upgrades that have taken place. So the public service helped coordinate several facility improvements that included landscaping improvements, installation of sharps containers, and exterior lighting. So with that, I'll pause there and we can take any questions that committee might have.
Yes, go ahead.
Find it quickly. So in the report, on page 2, I guess, the second page, I just noticed that in the bottom right-hand corner, individuals using toilets or urinals and peer support services monthly stats. So I just wondered, like, if you have any insight on why the peer support, like, obviously the bathroom visits go up. I'm assuming that's just because more people are out and about. But why those peer support services actually drop lower than the rest of the year during those warmer months? Do you have any insight on that?
For Councillor, is this from the chart on page 6? Just make sure we're looking at the same thing.
In the attachment on page 2, it's just a 2-pager, so it's the second page.
Okay.
It's 2025.
To speak to It's an interesting question. I'm not sure why the peer support might wane, even though access to use the facilities might increase. It could be that there are additional services from shelters or other service providers that ramp up in the summertime. It could be that there could be more street patrols or outreach is able to be more present. I'm not sure. We could certainly dig into that though and find out.
It's just interesting.
Mhm.
Like it really drops off quite a bit during those times. Despite people clearly being there, right?
I'm also curious if we have, and I'm just trying to see if I can see it here, but I don't. Do we have any data on like, of course, we know that there's a need in terms of homelessness, but there's also a need just in terms like the one I'm thinking of at Central Park, right? Like there's a lot of people using that space, right? So just people in general using that space that are not necessarily homeless, but we have no option. Do we have any data that kind of splits that apart to see really who's using that?
We don't,
Yeah.
I'm aware of, no. It would be interesting to see. I know even at Emiwigimig, if you talk to the staff there from Mumaway, there are a wide spectrum of folks who use that facility. I mean, even the comments that the staff used to say is you have everyone from business people to local community members coming in to use the bathroom. So
Wonderful wash.
I think at Central Park, you would see, kids and families, people using the soccer pitch, all kinds of different community members seeking a washroom facility. So it'd be interesting to see.
Flex guy listening here. I'd like to see more bathrooms, or if not bathrooms, but porta potties in our public spaces so that we do have the opportunity for people with kids and stuff to be able to have places to go. So looking at it from not just the lens of homelessness, but just the lens of making our spaces more user friendly and family focused and stuff. So yeah, so anyways,
Is the washroom here at 400 Cumberland? Is that near Central Park?
yeah, that's
Is that the one?
yeah.
Okay.
And it's like, I think it's a great, I'm really glad that they've added that there, and I could see that there could be other spaces in our city where we could use definitely porta potties and stuff.
And is there an organization who tends to that particular one? Which organization tends to that one? Or
It's the Knox Day Nursery.
They take care of that.
It's kind of keep eyes on it and then
Okay.
let our staff know if
Okay.
something has gone awry.
But we pay for it.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
okay, so then I hear what Councillor Gilroy is saying, but in the report, it says something a little bit different, that there are some challenges around these particular porta potties. Could you maybe highlight, are you able to speak a little bit more what Knox Day Nursery talked about with this particular 400 Cumberland Avenue? Can you
If
get
you-
into more granular?
Sure,
Yeah.
I can talk about it a bit more high level. I don't know the Knox specific piece specifically, but maybe I'll,
Yeah, we've gotten good reports from Knox that specific unit is welcome. And they haven't submitted, to my knowledge, any complaints at this stage.
Okay.
I think the reality for us, and Chris, I'll hand it over to you on this, but there are complications with the portable units. They haven't lasted very long at most sites. There are issues with certainly they're being set on fire. We've had issues with the fires affected surrounding structures. Cleaning them is very difficult. We have a sole source that's responsible for providing the units. It's very challenging for their staff to access and clean the units in some cases too. So it hasn't been a full success, unfortunately. And what we had brought in initially as COVID-19 focused initiative, we've seen it used much less in recent years, certainly than it had been at the outset. We have anything to add to that, Chris?
that's the gist of it is we brought the units in because we received some money from the Canadian Federation of Municipalities at the time during the pandemic because no one had a place to go. We worked with End Homelessness Winnipeg to place these throughout the city in strategic areas. It worked well during the pandemic because it provided that access. After the pandemic and more recently, as other places opened up and other bathrooms were available, these sites have been subject to, as Greg was saying, vandalism, fires, theft. So any of the components of the units that can be removed have been removed. The vendor would, I believe, would like to probably end this contract. I think it's one of the most difficult ones they have with the city, let go. And we're having a increasingly more challenging time to identify community-based organizations who are willing to act as VNC and Knox are, where they're kind of being our eyes and ears on the ground. So with these units, we've tried to maintain them in community as long as that community partners has been willing to host it. But having agencies willing to do that has decreased. So we're still looking for opportunities to keep those units out, but focusing as much as we can more and more our time and resources on Amawegamig. So I think this program may be one to consider how we might sunset it or change what we're doing.
And when did the one at Knox Day Nursery arrive at this location? Has it always been there?
Question. It's been there for at least a couple of years. I think.
Couple of years?
Yeah.
Okay.
24, I'm thinking.
But we're seeing some successes with that one, that particular one.
Yeah, so as long as the agency has said that they're still happy with it and they want it to be there, we've kept them in place.
Okay.
And that's one of them.
Okay.
Another route, like I don't know if you guys look at this at all, is looking at a more of an expensive unit that is a little bit easier to clean, a little bit more easier to take care of. Those porta potty ones are very hard, like they have more portable ones that are a little bit nicer, like with normal toilets. So they're just, and they wash and stuff themselves and stuff. Just out of curiosity, do you look at, I know that would probably be more of a cost, but do you look at those kind of things as well?
When we first started the program, we looked at all of the suite of toilets and
Yeah.
washrooms that Donegal has. We looked at previous pilots that were done in the city where you had units put in a shipping container with a ramp for accessibility. There's lots of good models. The challenge is ultimately cost.
Yeah.
So if you are going to have a more expensive unit, the best thing to do is to have someone on site when those units are open, and then to have some way to secure the unit or remove it when it's not being monitored. Otherwise, you'll see those units unfortunately will be damaged or destroyed by fire.
Just thoughts, because I know Spence has one on Cumberland, but I don't think it's staffed very much, right? Because I don't think they have the ability to staff. Maybe there's some partners, or maybe we could be using that if it's not being well used in the community, maybe we could partner and use that space, that someplace else. Or it might be better suited, and we could, just thoughts, good for thought. Thinking outside the box.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. We had liaised with Michelle on that, the executive director of Spence, to look at that unit where we had, the plan at the time was to coordinate cleaning. So we would clean the unit or have our vendor do that and cover the cost. The challenge was, of course, staffing, but that's something we could explore. further.
Perfect. Okay, seeing no other questions? Nope. Great. I can have somebody move to receive this as information. Moved by Councillor Duran Wood. All those in favor? Aye. That's carried. All right, thank you guys, appreciate it. Moving on to back up onto the regular agenda, item number 2, operation of fireworks on private and public property. I believe there's a request for an extension of time. In the meantime, are there any questions for the chief? No, okay, move to request, I think, up to 60 days. Okay, all those in favor? Aye, and that's carried.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to approval, single source negotiation award of 5-year contract for the supply and delivery of the 375 Taser 10 conductive energy weapons, software subscription and accessories. It's a long title. Welcome.
Morning, I'm
Have you
Jeff,
presented to our committee before?
yes,
Yeah, that's right.
so I'm Jeff Wiggett, I'm with the Winnipeg Police Board. I do believe though there are members of the Winnipeg Police Service in the meeting on Zoom who will speak to the Oswego report. I do, while they're coming on, just want to make an introductory comment about why this matter is here before you. You might not have seen something like this for some time. So this is a approval of a contract. The city's purchasing policy puts it in a place where it requires the standing policy committee that the Public Service Department reports to approve the contract. Now that is subject to then the city's organizational bylaw and city Winnipeg charter. And so this report has come through the police board. The board has received it as information, authorized the service to proceed with the matter before you today. I just want to note though, those the org bylaw and the City of Winnipeg Charter were never amended to reflect the reporting relationship that the service now has with the police board. When the province introduced the Police Services Act back in, well, it came out in 29 and then came into force in 2012. So that's how it ends up here, is because that org bylaw still shows the police service as having a direct reporting relationship to this committee, though now in practice, because of that provincial legislation, it goes to the board. But I'll let the service speak to the contents of the report.
Sure. Good morning, welcome. If you can introduce yourself and then you can go on to your presentation, please.
Yes, good morning to all board members and thank you to Police Board Member Wiggett. George LaBosse here, Superintendent, Winnipeg Police Service Operational Support.
I'm a new member, Art Starr, Deputy Chief of Police.
Sarah Haloka, Executive Director of Finance.
With respect to providing a little bit of insight to what we're doing here, clearly we had a TASER 7 contract in place. However, as a service, we're always looking for ways to enhance community safety. An opportunity came forward with the product of TASER 10, the new iteration of the TASER product. And the benefits of this product were such that we just couldn't see ourselves not moving forward with this. Some of the items as far as benefits are listed in the report. Very quick highlights to explain those benefits are that the TASER 7 product, as good as it is only usable from within 20 feet. The range of the TASER 10 is up to 45 feet. And what this really translates to is that it'll provide a less lethal force option to our officers in more situations. And that's what we're looking for. This new product will enhance community safety, allowing our officers to deal with matters, again, without looking for more lethal force options. It also provides accountability in that every time the TASER is pulled from an officer's holster, we have data of that time. And so if ever it's pulled out and used, we certainly have record of that through the data that's transferred into the cloud and accessible to us. But when it's pulled out and not used, we didn't have that information before. Now we know. So if it's used in a manner of encouraging somebody to comply, all that information is now available to us. So community safety will be vastly improved. Safety to our officers will be improved, and accountability measures come into play. So there are other features that I think are worthy of just mentioning very quickly without taking up too much of your time. The ability to connect with the TASER 10 is better than a TASER 7 in that we have multiple chances to create that circuit where we can then use, neuromuscular decapacitation to effect an arrest without using greater levels of force. You'll note the TASER 10 has 10 cartridges within it, as opposed to the TASER 7, which is only 2. So this is another enhancement piece that will, again, make the tool more effective and bring about safer measures for our community. That, in a nutshell, is why we're making the changeover. And we're very fortunate that Axon, the provider of the CEW, was willing to put a close to our TASER 7 contract at no cost to us and allow us to move into the TASER 10 product as quickly as possible. Again, hoping to save lives, which I do believe this item will save lives in the long run. That pretty much covers it, unless there are other questions that the board may have.
Any questions? Yes, go ahead, Councillor Kilroy.
This is a single source, so is that just because you're doing an agreement with the actual company?
Well, it's a good question, Councillor. The fact is, TASER is the only approved product in Canada for a CEW. So it really has to be the Axon TASER or nothing at all. So that's why the justification for the single source.
And then I guess to the board, the board's approved
Yep.
the use of TASERs. They've done their own research.
Yeah. And specifically, the board has recently tasked the service with continually modernizing the tools and equipment that are available to members. So very much aligns with what the board has tasked the service with doing.
All right. Any other questions? No. Okay, so it looks like you're switching out the same or lesser. So I think if I read the report, you have 372 units of Taser 7. Is that correct? And then you're moving to purchase 375.
Yeah, we are increasing it to 375 with the request for this purchase. I will make mention that we do have 65 Taser 10s currently in our inventory as well. And that was purchased ahead of time in order to allow the trainer components that need to happen. So in fact, that number is 375 plus 65. And the need for that increase is quite obvious in our service in that we've redeployed some of our members to greater numbers to frontline duties. And of course, we have an increase of special duty requests. And we want to make sure our frontline members are all equipped with this intermediate weapon force, again, to minimize the need for more lethal force when those situations demand.
What happens with the Taser 7? Does it go back to Axon?
Yeah, great question once again. The Taser 7 hardware does not go back to Axon. They do not want the old hardware. However, they have given us permission to sell these off. And there is interest in Canada to other law enforcement agencies. And we'll take those steps to try to sell them off and benefit from that sale.
Wait, so you mean the city, your department will sell it or Axon's gonna sell it?
No, actually, Axon will allow us to go through that motion ourselves. And so we'll make sure that we find adequate homes for them in the coming months.
Okay.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
I guess I'm going to ask. The law officers that use this equipment, are they also tasered so they understand the force of what the taser does? It's my understanding that they all go through training, but they also get tasered so that they get that experience of being tasered.
Yeah, you're correct. We certainly, all of our recruits, when they're introduced to the taser, it's part of the course that they get tasered, and that way they all understand that. And our senior members went through this earlier when they were qualified on the product as well. So it is a good way for our officer to understand what that pain will be when they do deploy that weapon, and it's something we feel is very important to continue, and that's our plan moving forward.
So the report is based here. We have the jurisdiction to put this to the law of council. First. Always had it went out to council.
And that's to do with the award authority, if it's to do with the overall amount.
Okay.
So SPCS approval authority up to a certain amount.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's section 4.1 sub F of the purchasing policy.
Okay, sounds good. I don't have any other questions. Any other questions from my colleagues? No? Okay, I'm looking for a mover. If anybody wants to move a public service recommendation. Okay, moved by Councillor Gilroy. All those in favor? Aye. And that's carried. Thank you for coming out. Okay,
Thank
moving
you very
on.
much.
Thank you for coming out. Appreciate it. Moving on to item number 4, Winnipeg Public Library's attendance and incident quarterly reports for the months of October, November, and December 2025. We have Cindy and Kira. Okay, yes. Love your glasses. Fantastic. Thanks for coming out. Okay, go ahead.
Kira Coop is our administrative coordinator of customer service and safer spaces, for the record. Can we also do item 7 directly following? Because it'll
Sure.
talk about.
Yes, yeah, and then we can deal with, yeah, okay, sounds good. That's fine.
All right, so the report in front of you is for information report. It is the 9th report that we have done since 2023 as directed by council. It provides information on attendance, incidents by type, number of referrals to other agencies by type, and then interventions and outcomes by our community safety hosts. There's 2 recommendations in the report. One is that this report, which is the last quarter of 2025, be received as information, and that the next report, which would be quarter 1 of January, February, March 2026, be accepted as the last quarterly report. So for the 3-month reporting period of October, November, and December 2025, attendance throughout the library system decreased overall by 2.5% from 2024 to 2025, and that's shown on tables 1 and 2. Millennium Library attendance has decreased almost 23% since last year during Q4. There's a couple of reasons. There's many that could affect the attendance at Millennium, but two of the primary reasons are the Winnipeg Transit buses moving off Graham in June of 2025. And then in September of 2024, there was reduced hours at Millennium. So Millennium is now closed on Sundays and on Monday evenings. But the flip side of that is that there was increased hours at the branches. So we're seeing the small neighborhood branches are reporting increases in attendance, and that would be because of their increased hours. So particularly Cornish, Harvey Smith, Osborne, St. John's, and Windsor Park have reported increases between 5.5% and 24.5%, and that's shown on table 1. Table 3 shows the incident types at all the branches. Year over year from 2024 compared to 2025, there was a 22.5% decrease in attendance during Q4. The most common incident type still remains inappropriate behavior, with 163 incidences out of the total of 347 in Q4 being inappropriate behavior. Table 4 shows the incident types at Millennium Library only. Year over year, there was a 47% decrease in incident counts in Q4. Most common incident type, of course, is still the same inappropriate behavior with 71 incidents out of a total of 142. Referrals to agencies data is collected from 2 different sources: the library community crisis workers and from frontline service desk staff. Table 7A provides the number of referrals by type made by the community crisis workers while working in the library branches. 1,673 total referrals were made by the crisis workers in Q4 2025, which is an increase of 160% over the 642 referrals made in Q4 2025. Table 8 provides the number of community support referrals by type from all service desks within Millennium Library. Millennium service desks reported about 283 referrals in Q4 2025, and this is a decrease from 432 referrals in Q3 of 2025. Table 9 shows the reference question activity at the 8 service desks at Millennium Library. So this one I wanted to talk about a little bit because we discovered an error that was made. We neglected to include the December stats in the published report. So by way of the committee, hopefully we can amend the table 9 in the minutes. Because the last 3 columns of table 9 are incorrect. Yes, we have all.
You have a printout of the document?
Yes. Yeah. Yes. This read-throughs. The strike throughs show what would need to be changed. So the correct total for Q4 2025 service desk requests is 11,626. The report that's published says 8,030. So it was an increase with the December data, 1,626. Which represents a 33% decrease from Q3 of 2025. And the executive summary of the report and table includes the incorrect numbers at 55%. In addition, there was a typo in the column for the April to June 2024. It's in that same table. and it should be 15,051 and not 5,051. This report includes a lot of statistics throughout it, so, you know, apologize for the error that we have made in this one particular table. So with the community safety hosts that are under contract with Persons Community Solutions, they do play a vital role in helping build relationships and de-escalating situations as well as providing a sense of safety among the customers and library staff. So according to the stats provided by PCS in table 10, 65% of the community safety host interactions during Q4 of 25 reduce the severity of incidences and the number of times emergency services were called. So having the community safety hosts, on site, help address behavior that contravenes the library code, and it allows the library staff to focus on providing library services, leaving the community safety hosts to deal with other situations that may be happening in the library. That concludes the report.
I guess, you know, we kind of were patting our backs, selves on the backs that the incidents are down. However, there has been major changes with the Sunday closures and the bus on Graham. So we're really not, I think we're kind of at a wash. In terms of the Fearless Four, how often are they in the library? Yeah.
We have a contract with them that has them in the library every day, covering all of our services. Okay. For Millennium, St. Boniface, Cornish, Osborne, and St. John's libraries.
Okay, so we've expanded the program to other areas as well, which is good. So like, I guess I'm still concerned over us not having our main library open on Sundays and Monday nights, like it is our main library in the city. So, and my concern is maybe that was a choice because of what we were seeing in incidents. What would be the cost of having the library open on Mondays and Sundays? What was,
We'd have to look into
you'd
that.
have to look into that.
That was a decision made by council,
Yeah.
right? That they wanted to increase the branch hours, and
Mhm.
I think it was essentially the decrease in the cost associated with the Millennium hours, then increase the hours. You know, we were allowed to then increase the hours of the branches, so I mean, never know.
Okay. And I know that another question I have is you offer a lot of really great new programs. And are you taking the numbers when you have, like, I know that there's like podcasting now and stuff like that, which libraries are totally shifting and changing, which I really, really love. Are you taking those numbers when those programs are happening to see if you're seeing an uptake in library services during that time?
Yes, we do collect stats for all of our programs. They're just not included in this report.
Okay. Just
If
so
you're curious, get that.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing that, which is popular and stuff, and are we extending those programs to the branches? Other than, you know, I see some floating around, just wondering how much of that extension is going to the other branches.
So all of our branches have specific targets to hit for both children's and adult programs. So programs like the podcast program have a bunch of different staff from different sections of the library. So I believe that they share the stats between those areas. There are also programs like the library happy hour, which is an off-site story time for adults. That takes place in an adult only establishment.
Oh, I see, I didn't even know about that.
It's pretty fun.
Yeah.
And so for something like that, that also includes library staff. And also
Right, so I want to talk about table 1, particularly for the Millennium Library. And talk about the stats on the downward trend that I've noticed from quarterly to quarter, so from 24 to 25. We noticed there was a downward trend, same thing with all the quarters. I know you had stated in the report because the bus had come off in June of 2025. However, I just want to push back and kind of get a better understanding. The downward trend has been consistent through all the months. Could you maybe, were you able to, I posed some questions to you about that. Are you able to kind of talk or kind of give me some, you know, rationale behind why the downward trend between 24 and 25 over the.
So Q1 of 2024, and I'm just gonna round, there was, attendance was at 112,000. Q1. Q2 was 108,000. Q3 of 2024 went back up to 112,000. And it was in September of 2024 that the hours were reduced from the Sundays and Mondays. So really the impact of that reduction of hours at Millennium didn't really impact until 2020, until the fourth quarter. So the fourth quarter statistics then went down to 107,000. So there wasn't really a decline like from Q1 right through until the reduction of the hours in 2024, which was September. So then we started 2025 at 104,000, which was Q1, which was the closure of the community connection space in Q4. So there was a reduction from Q4 2024, 107,000. Q1 of 2025, it went down to 104,000. Q2, the attendance was at 102,000. And June 29th is when the buses left Graham. So the impact of the buses leaving Graham really didn't affect until Q3. Q3, it was the attendance went down to 91,000. We also had the closure of the Millennium Library for 2 weeks in August. And then Q4, which is the continuing impact of all these various factors, attendance went down to 83,000.
What are we, okay, so just particularly for the Millennium Library, what would you suggest or propose to, obviously bring the numbers back up? You know, because I don't think also we're counting people who are attending the downtown hub either, too. We're not counting those numbers, right? So we don't know those particular stats.
We have asked for those numbers.
Okay.
We haven't been provided with them, but they do a lot of one-on-one. So I don't think that they're the attendance necessarily at the resource hub will be, you know, we have to wait, I guess, until we get that information, but their hours, you know, based on their hours and the way that their service is being provided, it is more a direct one-on-one.
And what about programming that Councillor Gilroy had mentioned? Is the programming, like, I think there was a page about programming as well. We saw those numbers were also going down as well too.
In this report.
Oh, okay, sorry.
This report, we have the service desk referrals to.
Right. Okay.
Agency.
Okay.
So the majority of those come through our community crisis workers for to be specialist information workers and special service. And then there's additional statistics that are gathered from Millennium Services.
Okay. Then what programming are we offering out of the Millennium Library?
We offer a variety of programs. There's a mix between early literacy and village programs, as well as teen programming and adult programming. The adult programs, I don't have a complete list of them on my brain, but they vary between computer literacy. There are several book clubs. There's recently the adult literacy classroom that opened up, a new program that's at the province. And then there's a variety of labor programming as well.
Thank you. So the programs, if I can add, programs at all of the branches are run by staff. Right? They're created and they are run by library staff. So in order to increase programming, whether it's at Millennium or whether that's at any of the other branches, is a direct impact on, you know, FTEs. So they're related. We increase, in order to do increased programs, then we need increased. For table 9. Yes. The Millennium Library Service Desk statistics. I'm just looking at your new table here, sorry. I gave her the new one. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so information services, that one has definitely gone down. Like it's gone up in 25 in like the January, April and July. However, it has gone down in October, December. Are you, could you talk to me a little bit more about that? Are you able to explain why there was a downward trend for? Yeah, there does. Services? Yeah, there definitely is a trend downward. So, and I know that Karen and Alex Ray did speak with the staff at libraries at Millennium to find out what the reason, the rationale may be. And it could be a number of factors, one being just overall decrease in attendance will affect, right? But also a seasonal change from summer to winter when we see fewer people. So other than that, there wasn't a specific reason. It also depends on how long it takes, right, for the reference questions. So sometimes, you know, a question might take 15, 20 minutes as compared to another one that maybe take 1 minute. So it could just be the nature of the questions in that particular quarter.
On the 4th floor.
Okay.
So I could speak to that a little bit.
Sure.
More specifically. One of the things that we practice as a way of doing customer service is we will start people off with a question and then come back and check in with them. And so that can be reported as a longer question. Sometimes those searches for that information can take a while, especially if it's something related to genealogy or something that's really a dig deep kind of question. So occasionally a question on the 4th floor can take days.
Okay, so I appreciate the clarity on some of that. It was good. I don't think I have any other questions. Yeah, no, I'm good. You have any other questions? No. So this amendment,
Yes.
are you able to forward this to Peter?
Yes, so the CAO's office has provided me with a revised version of the report. I have emailed the counselors here a copy as well.
Okay.
So if the committee wishes, we can approve this report for information and include in the motion that we will update the report with a revised version.
Write that out.
Consider it done.
Okay, thank you.
So I'll just need a mover for the motion.
Well, I'll move with the following.
Perfect.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Gilroy moves that. All in favor? Aye. Moving on to the community incentive grant for Beardmore Advisory Council. It looks like this one particularly did not concur in the recommendation of Winnipeg something and recommended to us to, I guess, allow eligibility criteria. I did get an email from Councillor Lukes earlier this morning to support it.
This is out of her own funds, right?
I think
It's just
so.
that it didn't meet criteria, correct?
Right, is that right?
That's right. It didn't meet criteria only because it exceeds 50% of the total project cost.
Yeah.
So it's the applicant is requesting almost 62% to be
Mhm.
covered from CIGP and land dedication reserve. So between the total city sources, it exceeds 50. So it's a waiver of criteria.
I'm okay with that. I always let the council make those decisions, so I'm happy to move.
Good. Moved by Councilor Gilroy, all those in favor? Aye, and that's carried. Okay, moving on to item 5, 2026 reports on parks and open space assets. We had example and
JP Pro. Yeah, he comes once a year particularly for this report. He's our Parks Investment Strategies Coordinator. So he's the guy with the data that drives this report. And the report is an annual report requested by this committee back as early as 2015, I believe. Talking about 3,300 hectares of parks that we have, 535 hectares of boulevards, 370,000 assets on park property. Assets include everything from buildings, maintenance yards, down to pathways, garbage cans, picnic tables, et cetera, et cetera. So we have an inventory of all these items. That makes us able to generate this report, which 61% are in good condition, 23% in fair condition, and approximately 12% in poor or very poor condition. The class part of this request is also put a class 5 estimate together of what that very poor and poor condition items add up to, and it's $108 million. 42% of that is 42 million of that is within regional parks and 67 in other parks. The report also talks about that we've added 255 hectares of parkland into our inventory since 2012. And the appendices in the reports just talk about the list of parks in each ward, the list of amenities in each ward, the conditional assessment, and that class 5 estimate that we had just summarized into $108 million. So this report is to be received as information.
So I do have a couple of questions. So just in terms of where we are at, in terms of our deficiencies, what is other cities of our size? Like, where are we at compared to other cities? Are we over the amount of deficiencies? Are we?
Well, I don't know if we know that answer to that question, but we do have a target in the park strategy that talks about 5% of assets in poor, very poor condition. I'll look at JP because he will confirm or deny.
Yeah. And they're actually broken down by the various amenity types in the park strategy as well. I think one of the things we might look at going forward is whether that 5% apply to all services. Obviously, playgrounds very important. See or not, but whether we adjust those targets for other services, I think is one of those.
Okay, so we
evergreening the strategy.
So on that number, 5% is supposed to be poor. What are we? Would that be about
11, yeah.
We're at 11, so we're not okay.
But for playgrounds, we're under 5.
But so for playgrounds, we're under 5, which is probably one of our most key safety features. So overall, it's 11 though.
Okay. Well, good. So then just in terms, I know that you're looking at I don't know if I'm saying the word, but when you're identifying the gap to the spatial analysis, now, from my understanding, there might be other kinds of analysis that we could be using that is a little bit more inclusive. Have you looked at different types of analysis, and if maybe, is this what other cities are using? Should we be looking at more of an inclusive model in terms of identifying these gaps?
I'll start at the front end. This is a photo, just a snap photo of where the assets are at right now without knowing what our customers want or desire. We completed the park strategy back in 2022 to identify some of those gaps in what the community or neighborhood might want versus just what we have. Anything to add to that?
I think because this report started much before the park strategy, I think we're starting to see like a sort of slow amalgamation of the two, sort of transition of the ideas. Because this one is basically just, hey, it's everything that's broken and reported. The park strategy really starts to talk about the gaps where some things that might be require renewal might turn into a different kind of asset to meet the gap in that area and things like that, which might be more kind of like a thinking.
So are they both, or both the park strategy, is that spatial, I can't say the word. Spatial
analysis.
Spatial analysis, still can't say
Okay.
it. It's my ADHD in me. Is that still being used? Is that the formula being used under the
Yeah,
park strategy?
100%. Yeah, that's probably the biggest driver in the whole provision analysis is that spatial analysis. And as this new GIS modernization comes in with Esri, which my understanding is next year should be kind of going in, we're doing all the discovery phase stuff right now. And we'll be able to start to replicate that a lot better.
Okay, and then I guess then my next question is, like, I know, so in our green space, we're trying to increase the amount of green space. I see that we do have an addition of 255 hectares of parkland added to the inventory. Do we have kind of an idea of how much we would like to grow our green space, like every year?
Well, the 255 is really just related to parks essentially that developers have developed and they turn us, in new neighborhoods and they turn over to us. So that's mostly the 255, that's the part of it. But what you're referring to is actually there's a council motion to increase the acreage of parklands by 1,000 acres. And that'll be a major discussion point in the upcoming green space plan that the city urban design people at PPD are working on, and there'll be further discussion on that.
Okay, thank you.
One question I had on one of the paragraphs that said, some age deteriorated assets may be identified for removal in areas where demand is low and the applicable service provision targets have been exceeded. In some cases, removal may be replaced with a different asset. Could you give me an example of what that is? Age deteriorating assets may be identified. Is that playgrounds, buildings?
It could be.
Okay.
It could be any of those things. Of course, we'd always be discussing those items with the local
Area
counselor. There has been some, and it's very rare, and this is before the strategy came in place, where the counselor agreed there was 2 play structures beside each other, well, within a block or two. And the local counselor said, yeah, let's make this a passive park space. Let's keep this other playground structure. So the idea being in the park strategy, you want a playground and a playground structure to be within 600 meters of where the 95% of the people live in Winnipeg. So that's the whole idea. So you can see a time frame when there might be some data. We're very new into this right now. So we haven't really even started doing capital budgets towards considering that, but that may be coming up. And the best example, of course, that I could think of was Kilcona Park, where, there's really a massive structure, buildings out there. And those particular buildings are in such a state of disrepair, we're looking at demolition of them. The replacement, we don't have budget for this yet, we haven't put a capital request in for yet, is going to be a more modern, smaller footprint than the big, basically Icelandic fishing village, if any of you have been out there. So there's quite a number of buildings out there. We would probably be making that a little bit more appropriately sized. So that's probably the best example I can think of.
Good, thank you. And then I just had a question about your appendixes here. On the back here, you had Appendix B on regional parks only. I'd noted that Minarski, North Kildonan and John Bloomberg Park had the highest amount of deficiencies or buildings. Could you, the one that comes to my mind is Kildonan Park. I'm assuming that's $20 million?
Yes.
Okay. Is that including Rainbow Stage, all the shade structures? That's a very high number, but I'm assuming Rainbow Stage, that's including Rainbow Stage.
Yeah, it includes the Rainbow Stage, 2 different buildings. The North Washington building there, and then yeah, the rest are non-regional, so like the Seaforth office and St. John's lawn bowling building. But yeah, so it's the bulk of that number is the Rainbow Stage and then a few other maintenance buildings and so forth.
So I guess then, because we've also provided some money for the Rainbow Stage in our capital budget, so it's not necessarily reflected in this current document of the monies that have been put in, because are you waiting for, I guess, construction and all that to be done, and then you will reassess it, and then we should see this number come down?
Well, it's only $2 million in
Yeah.
Rainbow Stage, and I think I don't know the specific requirement for Rainbow Stage, but I think it's larger than that.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'll make a comment too, just in terms of like how this whole analysis works. What we do is we actually just take the complete replacement cost of these assets, which doesn't necessarily mean they need to be completely replaced. So especially with buildings, for example, sometimes it requires, a percentage of funding just to do some general repairs.
Right.
That's just the nature of like sort of how the analysis is run, especially for buildings, just because there's.
It's very high level.
Yeah.
I guess it's high level at the end of the day.
So it's a complete replacement cost, that's what it is.
Exactly, yeah.
Gotcha, okay, good. And then, appendix C, I note the top three and again, same thing, buildings. The top three were Daniel McIntyre, Minarski, and St. James. So maybe just talk to me about Daniel McIntyre, about the buildings, what buildings? And again, I'm assuming now that I know it's the complete replacement
Yes,
cost.
yeah.
Okay, could you talk to me what buildings are in Daniel Mac then?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so for Daniel McIntyre, it looks like the bulk of it is being driven by that downtown maintenance yard, 659 Wellington.
Okay.
And again, that's good. That'll be based off of our technician's assessment of the building, that it falls within that category of poor to very poor. Now, whether we actually need to spend $6 million to replace the full thing might not necessarily be the case. It could just be a matter of a portion of that being put towards repairing, maybe the exterior, painting some things, or those kind of things. So yeah, again, it's just the nature of how the data is driven. But that would be Daniel Mac, would be the maintenance yard. Minarski, same thing, actually. It's the maintenance yard of Seaforth. And then St. John's Lawn Bowling Building is also.
Other amenities, so that'd be play structures, litter bins, any other amenities,
It's literally everything else. So
everything else?
yeah, the report's very templated. It's kind of, the tables have stayed exactly the same for almost
Yeah.
10 years now. So yeah, we should definitely chat about, we could rearrange them or whatever, but for whatever reason, yeah, it's always been buildings, trees, and then kind of everything else. But yeah, let's look at other ways of slicing things.
And just to note for the other amenities, the number one is Point Douglas. It's really high up there, and I think, just to kind of tie it up, the other ones are Minarski, St. James, St. Norbert, which I find interesting. Also are pretty high in there for, other amenities, so. Okay, so thank you, I appreciate that. Any other questions? Yes, go ahead, Counselor.
I guess these are just a couple of questions about the bigger picture. Or the plan, space and recreational space. So we're talking about adding more park space. When we get maybe open space or a park sort of like given to us by the building. Is there any sort of proactive planning or stating of like what we expect the future costs of that maintenance of that space to be? Like, do we have that? Do we get something new? Is that factored in anywhere?
Well, I guess there's two answers to that. The big answer is, and this committee, certainly before your time has heard, we're not receiving any additional maintenance funding that's sort of above inflation for that 255 hectares that we have brought forward. So there is a bit of service levels are kind of slowly being washed down a little bit in the park system as a result of that. So that's certainly a concern from the Parks Division perspective. The second part of the answer to that is we're still working at. So we have pretty good idea of what additional costs and costs for the average park. And we're working on better systems to capture the specific costs when we take on an additional park. So that's something that, as JP talked about, there are new software systems coming available to us. We're going to be able to get better at that. We have average costs right now. We don't have specific costs. So that's kind of where we're heading.
So I notice, I guess it's about 33% of the assets that are in fair poor or very poor condition right now. Is that?
Yeah.
So I guess just following along that previous thought, as you're building your budgets, is there any, like, do you have a line item for saving up for eventual replacement or eventual maintenance or investment, or is it really kind of just driven year to year?
Well, from my view, it's driven year to year on the 5-year capital budget process, 5-year capital budget process. You know, we try to get the resources that we can to help out the park systems. We typically, and this was reported in our park strategy, I think the budget from a customer focused perspective is $162 million shortfall. There has been some work done in that 162. Like we get, like the report says, we get maybe $7 to $10 million a year just for the park system. So some of that work has been done, but it's quite a large bite to take out of the budget. And we understand that council and councillors have a lot of difficult decisions to make when they're allocating funding. So there is a gap or shortfall in what our customers would like to see out there.
Those, the money that's in the budget for parks, is that, like, I guess my impression so far is that the vast majority of that is sort of going towards the big regional parks, whereas the smaller neighborhood parks are kind of reliant on more funding.
Well, that's, yeah, you picked up on that in your short term with us. Yeah, there's a lot of LDR and prep funding in the capital projects that are really mostly council based on consultation with us, of course. And like a lot of the things like the play structures, you know, we're really in really good dancing partners with the councillors, because we know that that if a play structure is really poor condition, it's got to get replaced, and we're all very well aligned to repair that sort of amenity in the park system. But that is one of the challenges that we have is, you know, there can be separate thoughts about what the park system needs overall versus what the councillor and the ward desires. We try to make that work as best as possible.
Conversations to come.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, good questions. Any other questions? No, okay. Anyone with more information?
Sorry, what was the?
It's just to receive the report for information. Okay, moved by Councillor Duran-Wood. Okay, all those in favor? Aye. That's carried. Moving on to item number 6, the Homegrown Grant Community Tree Planting Projects 2026.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairperson. This report requires council approval because it's a grant. And it's a grant to external parties. In this particular case, it's our homegrown program that we've run for a number of years now with communities that have been able to apply for our tree planting grant to focus tree planting on areas and locations where the community would like to see it done, rather than just the city, us deciding where the trees are going to be planted. So in this particular case, we're looking at 5 groups and 125 trees being planted. The 5 groups are listed here in the budget, and we only had 5 groups apply this year, and the maximum they can apply for is $20,000. And as you can see, they all are up and around that $20,000 mark. So What we're looking for today is that these grants be approved to these groups.
Yeah. That's my community is one of the, gets the grant, I'm happy to do it.
I have a couple of questions, if that's okay. So I previously to being elected to council, I helped to work on 2 of these homegrown grants, so I know they're wonderful for being able to respond to what the community's wants and needs are for trees. And I just did the quick math on it, so it's 125 trees for about $96,000, so it works out to about $768 a tree. I just wondered, like, how close is that to if the city is just doing it through their own public planting program? I guess that's the planting and then the 2 years of maintenance. How close is that?
Yeah, well, I don't have the specific figures here, but it's in the ballpark of what it costs us to plant a tree, and both programs are maintaining for 2 years also. I think a lot of the suppliers of this particular program, the planting, are some of the same that we use for the city planting.
And then I also just wondered, because I know there's been some cuts to federal programs, like what is the future of homegrown? Is this something we're going to be able to continue, or?
Yeah, that's good. That's a good question. And we're looking at continuing it. So I guess the 2 billion tree funding is ending in 2026. However, the capital and operating budgets are being maintained as we move forward. So our staff are looking at a way to continue this program, maybe not in the same way or shape at this point in time. What we're seeing, I think, is what we see in a lot of programs is there was a lot more groups initially that were applying these. The groups get tired, and it's a lot of additional work for them to put, to get volunteers together, to put them together. So anyways, we're presently in a state of reviewing the program, and hopefully we'll have a solution coming up within the next few months that we can share with you and address it in that way, because we like the program, the community likes the program. So yeah.
So that's good to hear. The other factor, I think, is just having worked on them, is that it can be hard to get the quotes to support the application. I suspect a lot of the arborists were getting a lot of requests, and then I'm sure that's onerous on them too to respond if they don't know for sure they're getting the business. So
Yes.
something else to factor in.
Well, it's that everyone gets tired,
Yeah.
kind of thing, doing these programs. So I think we've seen this program run a full cycle actually, because now we're down to 5 where we used to have maybe 11. I remember one year successful applicants. So I think it's time for looking at it again and trying to come up with another program. Hopefully a little easier to administer on behalf of the community.
Good, excellent. Any questions? Pretty point. Gilroy moves the public services recommendations. All those in favor? Aye. That's carried. Thank you, Dave. Okay, on to our last one, donation to the St. Patel Historical Society. I guess they moved the product already, so it's just kind of cleanup. I'm assuming this is a cleanup motion, so
just sort of
housekeeping stuff. Oh, I don't think we have anybody from legal here, nobody from the public service, no. Does this
would
go
have
to
to-
go to council, right?
That's right.
Yeah, okay. So,
There's no cost to the city, so it's
Yeah.
just kind of new, right?
okay, moved by Councillor Gilroy. All those in favor? Great, we are done. Seeing no other reports. Moved to adjourn by Councillor Gilroy at 11:10 a.m. All those in favor? Aye, and that's carried.